what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Hauswirth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
It really spanned the ideological divide on this issue. I was particularly moved by yours, talking about mistakes that many people made, many networks made, and you talked about the misinformation. It is impossible to know what to believe in this hideous war. Talk about that.
That show from Morning Joe trying to cover up for progressive media's coverage of a lot of mistakes as it relates to what's happening in Israel, specifically the way that folks like the New York Times, who has finally apologized for their blatantly false story about that hospital bombing. But you hear him say things, well, this crossed all political divides. Is what he's trying to say is it wasn't just us that messed up. When he says political divides, he means like, well, yeah, it was us, MSNBC and CBS and ABC and NBC, to my recollection. And if you know differently, please correct us. You can text us 874-9390. I don't recall people like Fox just running with this story that Israel had bombed this hospital with sick people in it. I didn't see that on Fox, but we see it on these progressive news outlets because they're trying to portray something that simply is not true. We go back to the rainbows and unicorns and them trying to portray their point of view. And listen, I know Fox does the same thing. They're trying to push forward a point of view, but when you're pushing forward a point of view that is not true, when you're supporting terrorists, and that's what a lot of these news outlets undeniably are doing. They're trying to make it, well, we shouldn't be killing terrorists. We shouldn't be supporting Israel defending itself against a terrorist attack. We shouldn't be doing that. New York Times, New York Times was the most egregious offender with their headline. So this happened, I think they printed that was the headline, I think on Thursday when the New York Times came out with it. Yesterday, several days later, they have finally issued an apology, if you will. But again, and I loved Stephanie the other day. As a matter of fact, right here on the show, she was talking about something as it relates to cannabis tax revenue for the state of Missouri. And got something, which happens, by the way, when you're live without a wire, walking across a canyon or something, you make a mistake. And Stephanie corrected it immediately, said, I'm sorry, let me correct it. And she did it right now, right here, right then. New York Times, well, first of all, let's see if we can find a way to wiggle our way out of it. Couldn't do it. So here's how they worded this. And this is important because when people talk about, and I don't like to use the phrase mainstream media because I think it's an overused cliche. Instead, I use another cliche, national news outlets.
That works perfectly.
Thank you.
It really does.
No, you're right. The Times' initial accounts attributed the claim of Israeli responsibility to Palestinian officials, noted that Israeli military said it was investigating the blast. However, the early versions of the coverage and the prominence it received in a headline, news alert, and social media challenges relied too heavily on claims by Hamas, terrorists. So the New York Times saying, we relied too much on what the terrorists were telling us. My goodness. We did not make clear that those claims. So in other words, they ran with the story. And in the mea culpa that continues, they said, we did not make clear that those claims could not immediately be verified. Marsh, you've been doing this for a long time. How do you do that? I mean, you say they're just saying, hey, they're presenting off as fact. They didn't use words allegedly, supposedly, maybe. How do you, from a news angle, how would you cover something like that?
Yeah, it's one of those deals. I mean, in some of the news outlets, I think even give props to Fox. They tried to handle it and say, there are conflicting reports, whether this was a missile fired by a terrorist group or it was an Israeli airstrike, but present the facts and all the editorializing that went with it on a lot of these major national news outlets, unfortunately.
Hauswirth, how would you handle something like that? When you get information, it's like, well, because they were trying, and they're saying, we tried to present it off as fact. We did not make clear that these were not verified.
John and I have covered many, many controversial issues and tough issues over the years. Thankfully, we haven't had to cover terrorism or Hamas personally. I mean, so it's hard to, but I can tell you this, absolutely agree with John and you. You have to independently verify as best you can, or at least say, and that just doesn't look good for the times. With anything, if there's something that's not verified, you have to say that. I do appreciate what they're saying right now, but it's kind of late right now for them to be saying that.
Well, and now their excuse, well, other people did it. I'm thinking about my kids when one of them's in trouble and they're like, well, he did it too. Like, that doesn't make it any better.
New York Times is 4 years old. The report left readers with an incorrect impression about what was known. It would be more accurate for the New York Times, because the report left readers like it's the reader's fault. You lied. You were pushing forward a point of view, given the sensitive nature of the news. So they're saying this is sensitive nature of the news. Yeah.
A hospital being bombed, it was one of them.
By a country defending itself against terrorists. They're saying, given the sensitive nature of the news, well, you should have known that before you ran with the headline and then didn't correct it for several days. Times editors should have taken more care with the initial presentation and been more explicit about what information could be verified. And this matters because the people that watch these progressive news outlets, they're all, these kids, they get out of schools of journalism from liberal universities, and they're pushing forward a point of view. They're pushing forward the rainbows and unicorns and stuff like that. And that is incredibly disheartening because, as most of the folks here, part of the Wake Up Mid-Missouri family this morning, listening at 6:15 in the morning, most folks, I guess, we can consume news, probably maybe Fox and maybe some stuff from Breitbart. One of the things that I do is I look at everything. And I'm not saying that to brag, and it's not even for the show. I look at everything. I look at what CNN, USA Today are saying, because I want to know, because sometimes there's things that my favorite news outlets, they don't have the whole story either. They're guilty of it too, by the way, which is why I'm a big fan, and I encourage folks, look at everything, especially with these sensitive stories. One of the other things that Stephanie Bell and I like to do when we see a story of national prominence, besides just getting it from Fox or USA Today, going to local sources. If there's a big story about elections in Arizona, we go to the Arizona Daily Republic. Look at what they're saying in the local news outlets. You get a really different take sometimes.
Certainly, and we've seen it happen right here in Missouri when we've hit the national news. Brian's laughing,
Sure.
But it's almost like a crazy game of telephone like you play as kids. It starts here locally in Missouri, then St. Louis gets a hold of it, then, D.C. gets a hold of it, and we're like, wait a minute, that is, not what's going on here. For example, the one that's the most recent was the drag show, and then the sleeves in the house. Both of those were really bizarro once they got to the federal level.
War of words with Lutkemeyer and Gates.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We've been victims of this too. Actually, here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Billy Long and Matt Gates.
Right.
And
Billy Long about Rolling Stone. Yeah, the Rolling Stone, they
got us taken off of YouTube.
It was, and I'm trying to. It was about abortion, but they took his quote out of context completely.
And we were victims of national news outlets attributing things that happened here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri that simply were positively, absolutely not true. So now you see the problem. Somebody reading Rolling Stone magazine in Mississippi or in Syracuse, New York, they're not going to get on to a local news outlet or even a state outlet and say, okay, what happened here? They're going to take Vanity Fair's word at it, Rolling Stone. They're going to take CNN's word for it and not double check it. As a matter of fact, it is so bad. A spokesman for the Israeli Defense Forces goes on to MSNBC. He calls them out to their face.
Please keep in mind that everything that comes out of Gaza is not verified independently. It is information disseminated by Hamas, and that Hamas are the equivalent of ISIS when it comes to truthfulness. Let me just give an example, and I think it'll be useful. The first reports, also reported here on MSNBC, quoting the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza, said 500 dead Palestinians in the hospital incident in Gaza. The EU estimates that it was between 10 and 50.
So he's on MSNBC. He says MSNBC did this to their face.
That's pretty.
Well, look at the national news outlets, the more woke side of it. and the crush of pro-Palestinian, protest stories that they've done compared to pro-Israel protest stories.
Yeah, and so they try to give this impression, man, here's what Americans really think. No, those people are wrong. Coming up a little bit after 7 o'clock, we did find something that Republicans, independents, and Democrats can't agree on. Steph, do we have a House Speaker yet, by the way?
No.
They hope to have one by 2025. 2026.
It's a morning of childish games. We talked about telephone, but I think today the plan is lock yourselves in a room until you can get it all done. Don't, you got to write your term paper, so no leaving your room until you get your work done. And I think Mark Alford actually suggested this really early on and said we should just not leave until we actually get the people's work done. And people are finally paying attention to him, I guess.
That's right. Yeah, pick a speaker and then everybody gets pizza.
We're going to reward you for doing your job. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri coming up 6:35. We're going to look at some Missouri polling for what it's worth. We look at these poll numbers when it comes to right track, wrong direction of the country. And I always surmise that whenever we see the majority of Americans, the overwhelming majority of Americans in consistent polling shows that America is headed in the wrong direction. I always think that speaks to the psyche. Stephanie and I kind of got into a conversation about this yesterday. We were talking about poor customer service and things like that at stores. And I was so glad Stephanie brought this up because I was going to bring it up, but I thought, no, the girls are going to make fun of me because it's just me being a cranky old guy regarding this.
We still might do that, but continue.
This horrible, horrible customer experience that was throughout my entire visit at a national retailer Friday. And as I'm going through the store, the things that I need behind the glass case, poor service because they're hiring just about anybody now. And I was thinking about that. This is so frustrating. And then you couple that with, oh, yeah, and am I going to make the mortgage payment at the end of the month? And I don't want to open up here this morning with a bunch of fear and we're going to hell in a handbasket. Don't ever want to do that here. But I think this stuff is real. So coming up 6:35, there's some polling. Missouri-specific polling. Is Missouri headed in the right direction? Chris for Arps, chrisarps.com. He's going to be joining us 6:35. We're going to be covering that there. 7:10, we found something that I'm trying to think. John, any idea? Something that Republicans, independents, and Democrats, something that they could agree on. If you were to ask me, I have no idea. Gander a guess?
No.
No. No.
Kelsey and Taylor.
Okay, fair.
And also 7:35, a new way to pay for stuff, and it has me doing a face palm. Coming up 5 minutes from now, daily.
Go figure.
DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Are the dominoes falling? We saw Sidney Powell plead guilty. We saw this. Can we call him Cheese Bro?
Yes,
saw
let's
Cheese
do
Bro
it.
plead guilty. What's the impact of these two top lawyers pleading guilty in this Trump Georgia case?
Stephanie has that story 5 minutes from now on the Daily DC Rundown.
indictments.
The walls are closing in as it relates to Trump. How many years have we been hearing that? Now, as his poll numbers continue to go up, and that is getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Trump continues to dominate the headlines. Two big notes today about pending litigation and court cases. Sidney Powell, of course, had pled guilty. This Cheesebro guy pled guilty. I think she pled guilty to misdemeanors. He's on a felony charge, but there's still 16 others plus Trump that are involved in this Georgia indictment. One U.S. attorney said, of course, it's not a good day when the lawyers that you were previously working with are turning against you, and that, Sidney Powell in particular could hurt him. Others are saying, look, everyone knew this gal was crazy, and if she gets on the stand, even if she's working with prosecutors, she's going to be so easy to discredit. So there's differing opinions about how much she can hurt Trump, but obviously, not ideal. And then those are just the first two. So who else, might fall when those dominoes really start coming down? There's also some overlap in between the cases that Fani Willis brought and the Jack Smith case. So the question is, if they're cooperating and if they're finding out more information, does that somehow impact the Jack Smith case? However, Trump is in court today, but not with anything to do with that. I think his trial in that case is set in March. His civil fraud trial is actually going on right now. He has been in court, so he's expected to be in court today. We saw they followed him around like he was O.J. Simpson the first day he showed up in court. Right. Remember? Yeah. So this is actually his 6th day this month that he plans to be in court. He's been there voluntarily. He was there 2 days last week. But Michael Cohen is expected to testify today, and so he plans to show up.
And again, I'm wondering, voter looking at, here's my bank account, and here's a guy, so he tried saying that the election was rigged. What do I care more about? Do I care about my bank account? Do I care about the border, which now we do have terrorists coming across the porous border? And I'm wondering, I don't care what he did. Please help me with my bank account. Help me with my kids' future. Help protect Americans from terrorists. I would give Trump a week's worth of producer Hannah's salary.
Maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Wow.
I agree.
Thanks,
2 weeks.
guys. I'll remember that.
The heck, I'm gambling with house money. Let's make it a month worth of Hannah's salary. If Trump, for his next court appearance, because they do follow him around like O.J. Simpson, he should show up in a white Ford Bronco, like one of those really new, cool ones with the big old...
And a pair of gloves that are too small.
I would give him Heck, I would give Hannah's annual salary to see Trump do that. How cool would that be?
You gonna pay my rent too, or?
Let's talk about that later.
Okay.
All right. On the international stage, not a lot of good news coming out of Israel with the ongoing, I guess we're calling it a war now, conflict, and except that Hamas is releasing some hostages. So a mother and daughter released yesterday, 2 more hostages releasing last night. Of course, everyone's speculating, why are they kind of they still have a lot of hostages. So, what's the purpose here? So we'll continue to keep our eye on that. And then also in Congress today, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long day.
It's going to be a long year.
They've got to get a majority of votes cast. They're voting by secret ballot. No proxies are allowed. So essentially, they vote. And I think there are 8 people in the running right now. Whoever's the lowest vote getter gets eliminated.
There he is. Chris Arps. By the way, I always applaud Stephanie Bell's husband, Mr. Bell, because the things that Stephanie Bell does, you know, Ellinger Bell in Jefferson City, owns Jefferson City Trolley Car Company, as part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri, the things that her husband does at home to make this possible, really spectacular. And the same thing with your wife, Becky Arps. How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic. Welcome, everyone. And I want to say for the first time on the air, congratulations, Mrs. Embry.
Well, thank you.
Do want to mention this is how big of a deal producer Hannah's wedding was. Chris Arps and his wife Becky made it all the way from St. Louis to come and be a part of the festivities on that day.
It's our honor.
It was certainly cool having you there. Welcome into the show. I want to start with polling for what it's worth.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, and that's why I always like to preface it for what it's worth. But you know, whenever we see the news outlets, they talk about it because people want to know, well, what are other people thinking? What are other people thinking? We see. Is the country right track, wrong direction? And it is consistently shown since the events of January the 20th of 2021. Americans do not like the direction we are headed in. And I liken it to this, and I don't know if you agree. Let me know, 874-9390. But I think that speaks to the psyche, kind of the mental state of individual Americans. Does that make sense? Like, we're bummed out. We're headed in the wrong direction. Things aren't good. What's your take?
I think it is. I agree with you. You know, we see this every year in polls where Congress has the approval rating that's right up there with lawyers and used car salesmen. But when you ask people,
anybody else you want to include? Go ahead, Chris. Add in more, man.
Hey, I'm just trying to tell it like it is. But if you look at congressmen in their individual districts, in most of those districts, they have very high approval ratings. People are like, Congress is going in a bad direction, but my congressman is great. And I think that's why you have 94% reelection rate for most Congress people.
So there was recent, by the way, welcome.
I love lawyers, by the way. I just want to say that.
We all do, especially when we need one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we're fortunate here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri to have one in Stephanie Bell. John Marsh is here. That's producer Hannah. My name is Branden Rathert. Our guest this morning, Chris Arps, ChristopherArps.com. It's a really good website. You get to hear him here every Tuesday, and he puts great stuff up on his website. So now, separately, besides the national numbers, there were some polling numbers recently for Missouri. Folks said, do you think that Missouri is headed in the right direction? The respondents who thought that Missouri is headed in the right direction, almost 50%. And that beats out the other options, which include wrong track and not sure, which I don't know why I always find it a humorous option. Do you feel that's kind of in line with where you are, or like with your afternoon radio show in St. Louis? Do you feel that half the folks in Missouri feel like we're going in the right direction?
You know, even though those on the East and West Coast call Missouri and the Midwest flyover country, we're very fortunate to live in flyover country because, for the most part, we have a lower cost of living than most areas. Even with the gas tax increase, we have one of the lowest gas rates in the country. Our inflation rate regarding, you know, food and shelter is pretty low. And I think, too, you know, we had a pretty rough 2 years, though, with the prior governor, with Greitens, with all the controversies and all of that. The last few years, whatever you think of Governor Parson, there hasn't been any controversy. He's been kind of a steady hand to most folks. And I think if you couple all of that together, I think that's why that poll says that most Missourians think that they're doing okay and the state's going in the right direction.
And here's one I don't understand. And I don't know if it's just because I'm just I'm gambling, whatever. It's not something I'm passionate about. But this one surprises me in this Missouri polling. The percentage of Missourians that oppose allowing sports betting. Half of Missourians say no, and I guess I'm surprised by that. Again, it could be I'm not interested in it. I don't care, but I'm surprised that half the folks say, well, we don't want you to have the option to legally sports gamble.
Yeah, that surprises me, too, because, you know, I think there's legalized gambling in Kansas, right? I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But I know in Illinois there is, and surrounding states there is gambling. Missouri is losing a lot of of revenue to other states because of that. You know, we hear the stories about people that live in St. Louis that want to do online gambling, and so they do a VPN that shows they're in another state so they can do betting in Illinois. It doesn't make any sense. And it reminds me of the argument back in the day when Illinois had the lottery and all of that before Missouri. And that was the argument those near Missouri made. Why are we giving all of that money to Illinois? People crossing the river to buy lottery tickets, and we should have our own lottery. I think it's the same with sports betting.
Yeah, I'll push back just a little bit. So sports betting, because it's on, because of the way that the tax works, it isn't as much money as people think it is, like you would be with traditional gambling or lottery. So for some people, they're like, it's just, it's not enough revenue. But I would say I'm not surprised by the 50% on the opposition. I think in Missouri, if you look at the history of how we got gambling, and Chris brings up a good point, other states typically have adopted things before we have. But, we first voted in the lottery, and then many years later we voted in the boats, and then we said, okay, you can have boats, but only on rivers. And then there was a court decision that said you can't have slots. So then we had to have another vote to have slots. And we've turned, Jefferson City approved a charter amendment that said, hey, we're never going to have a boat in Jefferson City, even though we've got a river. There was they had once proposed a boat down in Southwest Missouri, and they said absolutely not. So the voters have been, and these votes were all pretty close, the ones that end up winning. And actually some of these votes, the one in Southwest Missouri, one of the initial gambling votes, it was a no for people. And so I think you've got a sect of people. I think here with sports betting, you kind of have two groups coming together: the religious folks who are just anti all sorts of all gambling, and then you've also, I think, got some pure sports ball people who are we don't want to get gambling involved in sports because we don't want there to be any extra incentives or anything else. Now, we've seen in other jurisdictions that's really not been the case, and there hasn't been a lot of that going on. But I think there are people who have that in their mind. And so once you bring those two groups together, I think that's why you get to that 50.
And I think that's been dispelled by the NFL and other major sports leagues putting teams in Vegas, because that was always a concern. You don't want to put an NFL or a team there because, gambling interests may, determine games. That hasn't proven the case, so I agree with you, Stephanie.
Yeah, one of the coolest things that I saw this year after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, Steph showed me one of those maps where you could see, at the Missouri borders, everybody, fleeing the state to go and place sports bets. I just thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, it was like a heat map, and they also had pinpoints of people who had tried to log in to bet from Missouri, and they were like, no, it's not legal. And surely, there are probably a lot of people doing it illegally.
We're fortunate we get to hang out with Christopher Arps from chrisarps.com this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Chris, St. Louis area stuff. November 7th, special election for a bunch of folks in St. Louis County, especially folks around Ladue and Manchester. Big annexation for a large part of the land. No excuse absentee voting for those folks starts today. In light of all the major news stories and everything we've seen, where do you come down on no excuse absentee voting, vote in person, etc.?
Look, I worked at one time for the election board in St. Louis County during 2000, and you would have people that would come in and say, would fill out an absentee ballot, say they're going to be out of town or something like that, or they weren't able to go to the polls. They could. They just wanted to vote early. So we've had basically kind of voting early for years now. Why not make it legal, and people don't have to lie when they're going to the election board and just say, I just want to vote early.
All right, Chris Arps, ChristopherArps.com, joining us this morning here on the show. Before we wrap up our visit, I do want to see after the break if you have anything different to add to the House Speaker race and what's happening there.
Oh, I do. I've got an interesting choice. I revealed it yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
It would be super strategic, and that's why the Republican Party will never do it.
That's smart. I'm anxious to hear that. Here's another thing, one more thing in this Missouri-specific polling, generally speaking. Do you think, this is the one I always get wrapped up in, do you think it's, because I understand people, they're, nope, not going to compromise, going to be this way, and that's just does not always match up with the reality of things. Listen, I want an 8-0 map, and I want this, and I want that. However, it's simply not reality. And I get it because people get mad at me sometimes. Well, it's wishy-washy. No, it's not. Reality is not wishy-washy. Generally speaking, do you think it's okay for a legislator to make a compromise in order to get something passed? 31% of respondents, nope, should not compromise. 43% said it's okay to compromise. Your take? Oh, and not sure? Almost 30%. I don't know.
Look, there's nothing wrong with compromise. Compromise has been made a dirty word. You should never compromise your principles if in any type of deal or any type of debate or anything. But if you can get, 70, 80% of what you want, that's better than 0% of 100. That's always been my belief. And now our politics, especially among Republicans, has gotten so frozen that compromise is a bad word and you're automatically labeled a rhino.
And Chris said the magic word this morning.
Principle.
Hannah, because every time I talk about, it's principles, for example, the gas tax refund. People complain about taxes. Gas tax is too high. You can get some of that money back. And I always tell Hannah it's because I'm standing on
Principle.
And Hannah, every time we talk about
Principle,
she shakes her head.
I actually did a slight face palm when you said that, Chris, because it's become our new buzzword around here. And
I like it. Principle.
I'm going to turn it into a drinking game one of these days. Our bosses just don't know it yet.
Chris Arps, chrisarps.com. We'll hang out. He says he's got a really interesting take on the House Speaker. We'll find out what that is coming up 5 minutes from now here on the show.
Up 35, S&P 500 down 7.
But what's it doing today? We'll find out. We'll at least look at futures, 8:25. Morning Bell business news with a little twist with Stephanie Bell. That is coming up at 8:25. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, producer Hannah, Chris Arps, ChristopherArps.com. Please go to his website. Check it out. He's got some really good stuff on there. You listen to the show. You listen to him here on Tuesdays. You are going to really dig his website, ChrisArps.com. And you say you've got an interesting take on the... I thought Stephanie Bell in the Morning Bell about 30 minutes ago, she put it really well. She said, it's going to be another long day. But you have an interesting take. What's your take?
Yeah, it's going to be a cluster. You know, yesterday the Republicans had their debate among them to choose the speaker. We don't know who did well, but currently there are 9 people that are running. One of those 9 members running is Byron Donald from Florida, the 44-year-old second-term congressman. Look, Hakeem Jeffries is eventually going to be the Speaker of the House. He is the Democrats' minority leader. I think the Republican Party should upstage that and choose Byron Donald to become the first African-American Speaker of the House. And what it also does, if he is nominated, it's put people on notice on the floor. How are you going to vote? Are you going to vote against the first African-American Speaker that just so happens is a Republican? I think that'll be a hard vote for a lot of Republicans, even if they don't like Donald because he's close to Donald Trump. That I think that would be a hard vote for them to vote against him publicly. So I think it would be a double win there.
I like the
what do you
option.
think?
Yeah, I like it, man. I'll tell you the other thing
But it's
I
too
like.
strategic, though.
It's forward.
He's not AOC's favorite, is he, Chris?
No, he's not.
One of the very cool stories I'm looking at right now, ChristopherArps.com, has to do. So we have Israel, we have the House Speaker race, which is another thing. Why the impact of that is Americans are diverting their attention from other very important stories, including the stuff on the money regarding Hunter Biden and his father, President Magoo. That is front and center on ChristopherArps.com. Chris, anything else before we let you go?
I just want to say, first of all, Branden, congratulations on the new gig. Thank you for giving me the opportunity these last 4 years to speak to the good folks of Mid-Missouri. I enjoyed it thoroughly, both Becky and I. I'm going to miss having fun with you at 6:30 in the morning, but it's going to be nice sleeping in. And just wish you all the best. And we've become pretty good friends these last 4 years, and I'm thankful for that. And I wish you all the success in the world. And I wish this show continued success after your departure.
Oh, the show's going to be even better after I leave. As a matter of fact, Hannah, so we were mentioning this yesterday at 8:10. That was our family meeting yesterday. Now I'm going to be leaving the show. My last show is Friday, and then the show will get really good. I'm taking a job with the Attorney General's office. It's another way I feel like for me to be of service to Missourians. I've tried to dedicate my life to service and helping others. That's something I learned from my grandfather, who worked in Governor Kit Bond's both of his terms. And within minutes, there's a group. Is it Como? The Como Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
Como Good, Bad, and Ugly, yes.
Bad and Ugly. And so there's a lot of people on there apparently very enthusiastic about my departure from Wake Up Mid-Missouri. It has also been a pleasure to know you over the years, and I can't tell you, and I told Chris this off air, but I can't tell you how tickled that producer Hannah was that you and your wife Becky made the trip from St. Louis to be a part of her very special day, what thus far I'm guessing has been one of the biggest days in her 23 years of life here on Earth, and that meant a lot to her.
We were honored. We were honored to be invited. Really, it was a thrill to see you marry the man of your life, and you can see the love of your life, and you can see the love between you. And I know a little bit about that because I could see it between me and my wife. So long years together, and thank you all.
All right, Chris Arps, ChristopherArps.com. We'll see you again. Coming up a little bit after 7 o'clock. So there's actually an interesting take, one of the late night talk shows last night. I think it was Jimmy Fallon. I don't know what it was. So Christopher, he has an interesting take on House Speaker. One of the options last night from this late
votes.
Yay. Nay.
It can heckle the president during the State of the Union.
Let's go, Brandon.
And it can lose its job after just a few weeks.
I barely unpacked my stuff.
The Alexa House Speaker. It's time to listen to the speaker that's been listening to you since 2014.
I think as Stephanie Bell said about an hour ago in the Morning Bell, the House Speaker race as it relates to today, a good descriptor.
It's going to be a long day.
Yeah. But you have an interesting, so I guess now it's down to 7 or 8 finalists. I still think, basically, so if we have 221 Republicans in the House, we can eliminate Jordan, we can eliminate Scalise, we can eliminate McCarthy. There's 218 options out there, really, if you think about it, John. I mean, a lot of options. There's a lot of votes we could do until whenever.
Heck, let's nominate you.
Let's nominate Trump. Hell, at this point, nominate Santa Claus.
Oh, don't say that around Stephanie.
Oh, she doesn't like Santa Claus. But who is the person you do like?
Well, there are 8 people technically on the list, and going through the list, we heard from Chris Byron Donalds, and we'd heard that from our friend Raven before, but this caught my attention. Representative Jack Bergman is on the list. He's from Michigan. He's a former Marine Corps lieutenant general and the highest-ranking military officer elected to serve in Congress. And as my dad is a Marine, I've known a lot of Marines in my life, and they don't like to put up with a lot of crap. So I am thinking this might be just the guy we need.
I like that option. As you mentioned, Marine, I do want to mention there's a retired Marine in Centralia. There was a blood drive.
Yes.
And he wanted to pass along to us if he could thank folks.
Well, and I've done several stories about it. I've also done a voicer for John for our listeners on KWS. But yes, I talked to him, and his name is Eli Beasley. He, just a terrible bonfire incident. I won't go into the details. 2018, 80% of his body burned. 3rd-degree burns. He wouldn't be alive today, he told me, if it weren't for people donating blood. They had a blood drive Saturday. We previewed it on Friday. They had 39 units that were collected on Saturday. He and his family were there. And basically, he said if people hadn't helped him, his 3 children wouldn't have a father. So he's very thankful. He's 33 years old, a Marine, and obviously has gone through a lot, but he's now a certified flight instructor. So he wanted to thank people for he teaches young people how to fly helicopters.
Gosh, that's impressive.
Yes.
I think I wear flip-flops to work, and this guy's teaching people how to...
Not for long.
Yep. And we fact-checked that yesterday. For sure.
On the flip-flops?
Yeah, no flip-flops.
So we had a family meeting yesterday at 8:10, just announced I'm going to be leaving the show. My last show is going to be here Friday. The show is going to go on. It's going to be really good. I've taken a job with the Attorney General's office, and we were joking about the flip-flop thing. As a matter of fact, one of the best comments I got yesterday was, those are going to be some big flip-flops to fill. That was funny. But we were joking about it on air because I wear flip-flops. I wear them through a better part of the winter. I just do. I don't like shoes. And
you wore them to Hannah's wedding.
Wore them to Hannah's wedding.
True story.
Wore them to when I emceed the Boone County GOP annual chili supper a couple of weeks ago. Wore them there. It's just it's not.
Wore them to the Trump inaugural, as I recall.
Wore them to the Trump inauguration. Bailey's office had even asked, in a conversation with them yesterday, because they had reached out to Steph when we were talking about this on air, about the flip-flops. And so I wanted to fact check. And so I did speak with somebody in the office, and I said, so that's a hard no on the flip-flops? And they said, well, it's a soft no. So you're saying there's a chance, is the way that...
Good luck with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy for you, though. And I know the audience is as well.
They're happy I'm leaving.
The one point I make, too, about General Bailey's office is he was involved in the Brotherton homicide that took place on Friday that I covered, 8-hour sentencing. The prosecutors never have to disclose. Stephanie knows this as an attorney. They don't ever disclose why there's a conflict. But I found out Friday, without them saying it, why his office, Bailey's office, got involved. There was a conflict. And that is because Samuel Brotherton, the suspect, his mother is a prominent defense attorney here in town. She has a different name. I didn't realize that was his mom. Her name is Amy Thompson, and she's capital murder defense attorney. I'm assuming the Boone County prosecutors recused themselves out of that, and that's why Bailey's office came in and handled that case, but they did.
Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I always dig small-town politics. Like right now, Voss is without a mayor.
Like that Springfield area town that was trying to impeach their mayor?
Willard. Yeah.
Willard, Missouri. Willard, Missouri. Trying to impeach their mayor. This town of Havas is without a mayor, and apparently, according to our news partners, ABC 17, there was a meeting last night. They thought they were going to pick a mayor. I don't know offhand what the population of Havas is. It's not very large. Not a lot of folks to choose from.
How did they find themselves without a mayor?
The current mayor left because he, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, he said that I believe he's 51 years old. He does not recognize what the town, basically doesn't recognize the town that he grew up in, doesn't recognize it today.
I haven't left Havas. Havas left me.
Well, he's basically saying it's changed and not for the better, and that's why he resigned. And he said that the people were telling him he was out only doing it for the money. He got fed up with it. It got very heated, and he submitted his resignation.
According to
that was the whole deal too, Brian, where they were a lot of folks up in arms over dog attacks in Havas.
Correct. Yeah, and a lot of dog attacks there too. Related to that, but yes, that's just a bizarre thing, and it's in an area that it's on the outskirts of our listening area, so I don't know all the details, but 17 has done a good job covering it. It's very heated, and it's really divided the town.
So we don't have a speaker in the House. We don't have a mayor in Havas. What the heck is this world coming to?
No police chief in Ashland.
No police chief.
An interim police chief.
And there's news on that front. Apparently, Police Chief Gabe Edwards, he's suing the city of Ashland. Of course, we know Stephanie Bell. She's an older woman in the city of Ashland. She can't comment about that, so we're not even going to bother asking.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, go ahead, Anna.
No comment.
Come on, Steph.
The resignation letter, according to ABC 17, regarding the mayor in Havas, due to the persisting feeling from the citizens of Havas that I am not a competent mayor, along with that I do not have the city's best interest in heart and I only care about money, I hereby resign my position as mayor. Effective immediately.
And I don't understand what they mean by he's only in it was because he resigned, was only in it for the money. I mean, if you've ever been to Havas, it's not a rich town. It's poor. There's not a lot of industry, I don't get that. And the reporters have done, I think, a pretty good job. But I mean, what we really don't know is, what these folks were thinking. But he does have supporters as well.
Sure.
And I took it from his resignation letter that he was essentially saying whoever is going to take this job, it's a thankless job. And somebody's going to have to figure out what's going on with it. In all seriousness, this dog, apparently it's a real problem up there.
Yeah. 1,006 people in the city of Havas. Small-town politics in Havas and in Ashland. What can you tell? What is happening in Ashland, Ms. Bell?
I can't comment on any pending litigation, but I did have something crazy happen to me yesterday.
Really?
And you know that I don't answer my door. If you knock on my door, I'm peering through the blinds and I am pretending like I am not home. I am hitting the floor. There's no way I opened that door, except yesterday I was expecting a guest. My kids knew a member of our family was coming over, so our Aunt Amy, and so they the doorbell rings, and I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. She usually walks in, but they're like, Aunt Amy. They come running up, so I,
you got duped.
Oh, totally duped. I run up to the door and I open the door, and it is most certainly not Aunt Amy. It is a person with a clipboard and a button. And
that always, it's going to be a good story when its story starts with, some dude came up to our door wearing a clipboard and a button.
Was it Jehovah's Witness?
It was not. It was worse. And I looked out and I thought I could close the door, but this person knocked on the wrong person's door.
What did they want?
So I opened the door and they wanted me to sign their initiative petition.
Uh-oh.
And they were not pleased when I just said, there's no way I'm signing that. And they wanted to argue with me and tell me all of the good reasons why we should increase our minimum wage to $15. And so they were not pleased when I started taking photos of their initiative petition, just because I wanted to know, they filed like 30 versions. So I kind of wanted to figure out which one are they circulating. I was surprised to see that people in Ashland had actually signed this thing, because I would assume that most people are not in favor of increasing our minimum wage. And so they're out knocking on, and it's a weird way. I've not seen petition circulators going door to door in a long time.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I mean, usually they're at like sports games or they're at, the polling places. They're out at like shopping malls or movie theaters or whatever. So I thought that was really weird. And of course, he's there with Jobs for Justice. He goes, "We're a nonpartisan organization," and I was like,
"This is not a nonpartisan household."
Sure, you are. Jobs with Justice. I'm like, just like Planned Parenthood is a nonpartisan organization. I'm just thinking, oh, good grief. And he was and he said, well, I said, I own multiple businesses, sir, and I think that I should be able to pay my people however much I want to pay them. And he's like, well, do you agree with paying people poverty wages?
And then that's when you signed his petition, because that always works when he starts to argue with you. Oh, yeah, now I will sign your petition because now you're being an ass.
Yeah. So I had already said, there's no way I'm signing this. So he knew what he really wanted to try to convince me. And he's like, if the current minimum wage, I don't know, it's like, it's a $25,000. It's, not a minimum wage. And I said, when I got out of school, we barely, if you didn't have a law degree, you barely earned over that. You paid back your student loans. And guess how you got a pay increase? You worked hard and you earned it. Yeah. And the government didn't have to mandate it. So take your petition and see yourself out, sir. I did not.
Steph did her best, Clint Eastwood.
But I was
my lawn.
Make my day.
I was just so frustrated.
That's even worse than Brandon whining at waitresses lately over the size of his food.
I was kinder than that, but I did tell him that I disagreed with his policy positions. But I do want people in mid-Missouri to be on the lookout, because I think a lot of people, they come up, and he's like, well, do you believe in safety provisions at work? And I'm like, yeah, but also this same petition would require employers to offer basically 8 paid sick days to all employees. And so it's just, I don't know what he's telling other people, and I don't know how informed they are. And the petition itself is long. And so just before you sign, ask questions and be informed. And maybe you agree with him and then sign away, but don't just sign it to get these people off your porch.
So that's my fear, is people like, man, I'm busy. I got to run the kids to soccer practice. Okay, here, sign it. Goodbye. Good day. Thanks for sharing that. Coming up 7:25-ish, we are going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah.
Well, we have a little bit of a story about how Wake Up Mid-Missouri almost got canceled on Facebook yesterday.
Are we a victim of cancel culture?
Almost.
That's coming up. 7:25-ish, which means it's
actually 7:25.
Yay me. Tom,
Millie would be proud.
I thought was it ironic? Is that the right word I'm looking for? Yesterday, the young lady who spurred us to be on time with What's Hot with Hannah every morning, because she's a huge fan of What's Hot with Hannah, middle schooler, Blair Oaks Elementary School, Millie Fond, honor of Scott Fond from Missouri Times. She encouraged us to be on time. She was actually in studio yesterday with her dad while we were talking Missouri politics. And because we spent time talking about how she inspires. See, I think you can get inspiration from anywhere, whether it's kids, quote, whatever it is. And she inspired us to, do what we were supposed to be doing anyway. And because of our conversation about that, we were actually late. Thought it was ironic.
And she threw her dad under the bus hardcore for that one.
And properly so.
I don't know if you saw this yesterday or not, Brandon, but we got posted in a pretty important Columbia Facebook page. We've been posted in the Jefferson City version of this Facebook page once before, but this is the first time to my knowledge we've been posted about in the Columbia version. And it's the Good, Bad, and Ugly Facebook groups. I think every bigger town around mid-Missouri has one of these. They're kind of entertaining. But of course we had a big announcement yesterday at 8:10. And within 5 minutes, I believe her name was Cindy, had posted in the Como Good, Bad, and Ugly Facebook group, Brandon is leaving Wake Up Mid-Mo. And there were a lot of comments going, who's Brandon? Which was humbling for all of us, I think, on the show.
Especially Brandon.
Yeah, especially Brandon. The last time I checked on this Facebook post last night, it had almost 100 comments. And basically, people started arguing about politics in the comments section on this post. Go figure, right?
Cranky progressives?
Yeah. I went to go check on it this morning, and the post is nowhere to be found. I think we got taken down.
Canceled?
I think so. I think the admin in the Como Good, Bad, and Ugly deleted the post.
Really?
I think if someone else can find it and they want to text us a screenshot of it at 874-9390, be my guest, but I could not find it this morning.
Coming up Friday, 8:35, I'll pick them for winners of the week.
Like, we got canceled in the Como Good, Bad, and Ugly Facebook group. How rude.
How about that? Well, thank you, I guess, for your comments and that. By the way, coming up, so tomorrow, right about this, well, Raven Harrison, she's going to be joining us a little bit after 7 o'clock. Then Congressman Jason Smith, Missouri's 3rd U.S. Senator because of his chairmanship on the House Ways and Means Committee. He's going to be joining us 7:35. We'll talk about what Stephanie Bell is tabbing. Is going to be a long day again in Washington, D.C. Some other things coming up on the show this morning. We're going to have a cool guest in studio, John.
Yeah, we're going to have Jefferson City Police Lieutenant Dave Williams with a couple of things he wants to talk to us about. One of them involves you trick-or-treaters out there.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
It's always good reminders. And I love the idea of Halloween and trick-or-treating. And that is like the definition of socialism, going around and asking for free handouts, basically. But it's a
Are
good...
you trying to be a cranky old man about trick-or-treating? Good Lord.
Actually... So I'm going
you
to...
kids, get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn. And I'll hand out, but I'm going to hand out like bit of honeys.
Oh. Or apples or raisins. Like, you would be that house.
Popcorn balls.
There was that really infamous, social media, I think it was a TikTok
us, right? You spell us, U.S. I just picked that up. Has anyone ever thought of that? I just picked that up. A couple of days I'm reading and it said us. And I said, if you think about it, us equals U.S. Isn't that? Now, if we say something genius, they'll never say it.
No, that's Trump being Trump.
Kind of sounds like Kamala a little bit. I hate to say it.
Us.
It's a little like, well, Russia is a big country
next to this little country called Ukraine. Trump, us. Have you ever thought about that?
Wow.
Yes. Here's good news for us this morning at 7:36 on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. By the way, there's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. John Marsh in the house.
Yes, sir.
It's producer Hannah.
Hola.
My name is Branden Rathert. I think more good news. Polling, and I know I've been saying it for a while, but it still continues to consistently show Trump tying, a lot of times beating Joe Biden in a presidential matchup. Polling, for what it's worth, but we're talking USA Today polling, Suffolk polling, Rasmussen reports, Emerson polling, Harvard-Harris polling, showing Trump beating Biden. Now, even if Trump for some reason ends up not being the guy, I would hope that would still be anybody. Please, for the love of everything that we care about as people, man, I don't even care what your party affiliation is. Please, the president cannot be Joe Biden, and we just can't. We look at what's happening with the economy and your personal banking, your money, the safety, what's happening at the border. Another border, we covered this yesterday on the show, Border Patrol yesterday issuing a statement, and the way this was covered yesterday, kind of a blaring headline in an internal memo, like we are on high alert regarding what's coming across the secure border, as they call it, and that's because it's Biden's policies. And Democrats, frankly, whether it's a local Democrat, whether it's a mayor of a progressive city, whether it's a state rep, it's a Democrat, and they believe in the rainbows and unicorns to the detriment of us and your kids and your grandkids. So that's good news this morning. Trump continues to win in polling. Glad you could be here. Welcome into the show. Stephanie Bell sharing a story. Somebody came knocking on her door. She only opened it because she was expecting company.
Duped.
Yeah. And some dude came and he had on a pocket protector with 8 pens in his pocket, and he was wearing big, thick glasses, and apparently the glasses were, and so there was tape in the middle of the glasses, and his he had a belt on his pants, and they were pulled up almost beneath his breast, and he said, "Hey, will you sign this petition?" And what was it that he wanted you to sign?
It's an initiative petition that would raise the mandatory minimum wage in Missouri, ratchet it up. It also has other provisions in it. The one that stuck out to me was that I think you would have to, as an employer, it would require you to offer a paid hour of sick leave for every 30 hours worked, which I think equates, like, if you work like a full year, you'd have to get and as the employer, you'd have to give your employee 8 paid sick days off.
And there are jobs out there where you can get big money and where you can get time off and you can get all these benefits. And there are jobs that don't. And when you're working, that's those jobs. And I don't, and again, it's that gimme, I get this because I'm supposed to have it. No, man, that's not how it works. You work for it. And I think your perspective, you're also a business owner. So it's not just a political thing for you. Also, I'm a business owner. And also, artificial intelligence, kiddo. So guess who's going to be knocking at my door a couple years from now? It sure ain't going to be you anyway. And you know why? You're speeding this along because we see what happens in places like, Oregon, Washington, California, where, hey, we pay our fast food workers $20 an hour. Then what are you going to do? What kind of petition are you going to start handing out whenever you just don't have those jobs anymore? Because
we can rehire our fast food workers.
Right. And I mean, even if you're an employer, you feel good about yourself. You're paying right now over minimum wage, right? But maybe you're not paying, but you're paying over minimum wage. So you're feeling good about yourself. Well, as soon as they raise that minimum wage, then my employees are going to be looking elsewhere, being like, oh, well, yeah, if I can go flip burgers or answer phones for, $25 an hour, why would I drive a trolley or whatever? And so, and ultimately, again, what happens if I'm having to pay my drivers that much more? Guess what? When you want to come run a trolley, I'm going to have to charge you more. And I'm already charging you more because, thanks, Joe Biden, the diesel price. But so it's not like it really will. I mean, it does affect me, but ultimately, And that's what we know, is that it's going to cost us all more, and it's just silly.
And apparently
Silliness.
these folks they haven't been going just to Stephanie's house. Tyler text 874-9390. They knocked on my door. I ignored it. They left a flyer and it went directly into the trash. And Tara, she apparently had dealing with these folks too.
Tara is hilarious. She said she bumped into them at the Mizzou game after a few too many beers. She said it did not go well.
For which party involved?
You know who else is frustrating me right now?
Stephanie?
No.
Me?
Yeah, pretty much. No, this auto worker strike. I think it's kind of weird anyway. We want to work less hours and we want more money. Well, now it's affecting me. I need a part for my car. And they say, well, it might be a while. I'm like, well, how come? Well, the strike. But here's the thing, and I had to do this yesterday. So the part I can get pulled over because I don't have it. And we don't know when it's coming. I asked this, and they did. It was Bob McCosh. They sent me a thing to prove that, hey, I have this part on order, so if I get pulled over, I have it on my phone, like, here, the part's coming. I cannot do anything about this because these people want to work fewer hours and they want more money.
Did you lose your gas cap again?
Gosh, I hope not. Did I? Oh, no, it's not the gas cap. It's like the third brake light. And they're like, and it's not just a bulb; it's apparently LED. And people say, well, can't you go to a junkyard and get that? My vehicle is so old and decrepit; they don't even have these things in junkyards anymore. So now I'm carrying around my driver's license and proof that I have a part on order. So if you pull me over, hopefully that'll work. 874-9390. Greg is in Boonville. Greg, what's on your mind this morning?
Hey, you're talking about benefits. I've been self-employed for the last 30 years. Now I've got a new job with the state. I work 2 weeks, and they tell me I'm going to get 10 hours of sick leave a month. 10 hours of sick leave a month. Now, the pay is, it is what it is, but 10 hours of sick leave a month and 10 hours of personal time a month.
It's incredible. I know people who retire or leave their position with, I think, like a year's worth of pay, built up pay.
It's bizarre. You work for them for a lot of people in the same place that I'm working. They work there 27 years. They're going to retire and not lose a dime in their paycheck.
And you worked for it.
And they're in their early 50s.
Oh yeah, and I've talked to have a lot of friends in state government and family in state government, and they said, yeah, when I took the job, I knew that I could make more money out in the private sector, but I went into the state, and over time, all of this paid time off and retirement and everything else, it adds up to be, in the long run, for me, it was a better choice, right? And so you do get those extra benefits, but it's offset by maybe potentially a lower salary than you would get out in the private marketplace.
Great
perspective. In the last 30 years, I grumbled about state benefits, but now I'm like, hey, this is pretty good for me.
Yeah, I hear you, Greg.
Yeah.
I hear what you are saying. I totally
interesting.
I totally get that.
But back to kind of where we were on this minimum wage thing.
Yeah.
It's nice that people have options, right? And like you can pick. Do I take the lower wage and the better benefits? Do I go out into the private sector? And not only should employees have those options available, but employers should have some flexibility in how they package that up to try to entice the right employees. And what this initiative petition wants you to do is it wants to put these mandates on businesses, including small employers.
And then what happens to those employees that you've had on your payroll for a long time, and all of a sudden they're going, what do you mean the new guy with no experience gets the same an hour that I'm getting?
Exactly.
And here's, I think I would try to make it this like real world stuff. This kid comes to my door, and here's what I'm going to tell him. Say, well, so you and your friends go around and and you say that you're a nonpartisan justice for jobs for justice?
Jobs with justice,
jobs
for justice, something like that.
So you want to force this minimum wage, okay? And then somebody like a small business owner like Stephanie Bell, Trolley Car Company, and then you all want to get together on Halloween and you want to do, I don't know, a haunted tour through Jefferson City on the trolley car. And so you get you and some of your other initiative petition signers and your friends that are collecting signatures, and you want to come and ride my thing, and guess what? So now I'm having to pay these drivers so much now you cannot afford to come on my trolley car anymore.
Potentially. I mean, the prices go up, yeah. But it's messy, and I think we've got to really. I mean, we just raised our minimum wage.
Stories like this freak me out. Anytime there's stories about planes almost crashing and stuff.
This is stories about just straight crazy people.
You're not getting ready to fly soon, are you?
Yes.
She pretty much always is getting ready to almost fly.
A pilot, now he was not flying the plane. It was a flight from Washington. I think they were going to San Francisco, and he's in like a jumper seat, but in the cockpit. So he's a pilot with the air.
Deadheading it.
Deadheading is what they call it. Yeah, deadheading it. And apparently the dude, I don't know what happened, some kind of metal breakdown or something, but tries doing something that in effect disables the engine. Pilots get onto the intercom, say, hey, we've had a health emergency, which I guess would be accurate. Sounds like a mental health emergency to me. We're going to have to make an emergency landing.
We've got the guy that tried to shut the engines down out of the cockpit. He doesn't sound like he's causing any issue in the back right now. I think he's the dude. We want law enforcement as soon as we get on the ground and park.
There's radio traffic from that flight. Coming up a few minutes from now, that would be all except for this. What do you have for us, John?
The Grim Streeper.
It's 5 minutes from now. She'll present those at 8:25 in the Morning Bell. Business news with a little twist.
And another reason to be feeling good on this Feel Good Friday coming up.
And that would be all, except for this.
A giant skeleton pole dancing on a street sign has prompted a social media blowout of booze, so to speak, after a Utah town orders it removed. The city of Grantsville, Utah, showed a photo of the skeleton stripper in a purple wig hanging upside down from a street sign while two bony admirers sat in their lawn chair holding their dollar bills. The city posted
Knock
this.
it off, girls.
Displays like this are not acceptable. You have until 9 tonight to take down your decorations or it will be removed by the city. It's against city code to attach anything to a street sign. So the guy who put it up moved the skeleton dancer from the street sign, put her in his front lawn where he added more skeletal spectators, lights, music, and a freestanding pole. Then the neighbors started bringing over their skeletons and said online, "This is my absolute favorite decoration early." Why are people so uptight? Maybe laugh a little. And you need to remember the pole dancers don't have air conditioning in their homes. Brandon, did you know that?
I did not know that.
They have only fans. And now you know the rest of that story.
Only fans.
What'd the pole dancer do during the pandemic?
What's that?
She twerked from home.
Oh.
Man, John Marsh is killing it.
Oh, man.
Killing it.
How long
All
can we
right.
go before this segment gets canceled?
Yeah, no kidding. The good, bad, and the really ugly.
Thank you. We appreciate it. A little laugh before you go into work this morning.
The cutest skeleton setup I've seen so far that is actually PC, I guess. There was a blonde wigged skeleton. Wigged skeleton inside the house looking out. And then there was a bunch of skeletons in football formation and an 87 skeleton out. So you had like a Taylor Swift in the house and Travis. And I was like, that is epic. How many, are we taking bets yet on how many Taylor Travis costumes we're going to see next week?
Oh, I already have friends who've announced that they're headed that route.
Yeah.
That's like unnecessary.
And they're not young friends either.
We talked about, I hate Halloween. I'll add that to my list of things that I
Fist
hate.
bump, buddy.
I hate
yeah.
it. And like, so is it unnecessarily embarrassing when you show up to a party and someone else has the same costume?
Uh-oh, faux pas. We both wore the same thing.
I think that's weird, right?
That is weird.
What if they do it better than you?
Right. I went to a Halloween party. Pat Thomas, who's well known in political circles in Jefferson City last year, and I'm like,
Did you dress up?
No. Because I'm like you. That's I love Christmas, Thanksgiving, all that good stuff, but I just
now my kids are really into it, so I've agreed to join them in a family costume this year.
Aw. And I don't know why I get so funny. I mean, I am kind of an old soul, I guess, and I get fuddy-duddy about a lot of things, but I just do not enjoy dressing up on Halloween, which is interesting because, I like to hide from the public. That's why I love being here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. People say, well, because when I tell people, I'm a little shy and socially awkward out in public, and I am, and people don't believe me. Well, how do you get on the radio and talk to 3 or 4 people every morning out there in Mid-Missouri? And I'm like, because I'm hiding in the studio with friends of mine, Stephanie.
And no shoes.
And no shoes. But to be out, so I would think Halloween would be something I would like because I can go in disguise and nobody would know who
I think
I
we
am.
should have a vote of what your Halloween costume should be next week.
874-9390. Dan, what can we do for you, bud?
Oh, Merry Christmas, Stephanie. You have a month and you have 2 months and a day left for until Christmas.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you, Dan. Santa Claus checking in on the show this morning. So now we've got 2 of Stephanie's favorite things, Halloween and Santa Claus.
And it's coming up quick. It's already in the stores. I'm totally freaked out.
Yeah, and we're not even past Halloween yet. And, of course, there is the Christmas stuff out there. Coming up a little bit later here on the show, of course, I'm looking forward to the Morning Bell Business News with Stephanie Bell. And she says she has something for us for a Feel Good Friday, even though it's only Tuesday. That's what makes it extra awesome.
We're going to be looking forward to it.
And then Jefferson City Lieutenant Jefferson City Police Department Lieutenant David Williams. He's going to be joining us, talk about one of Stephanie's favorite holidays, Halloween. Seriously, some things that we need to know, and they're always good reminders, because we know, be careful and watch for kids and drive slow and, don't put stuff in the candy. And when the candy comes home, make sure you're going through it and what have you. But I think things that are always good reminders. story regarding the bombing of the hospital in Gaza. Oh, Israelis bombed this hospital with sick women and kids in it. And so he's trying to say this reached across various political spectrums. What he's trying to do is take blame away from MSNBC. By the way, it's right before they get into a segment with the New York Times. And this is why this stuff matters. Is not complaining just about, well, the mainstream media, which is a phrase that I don't like to use. I like to overuse the other phrase, the national news outlets, the New York Times. And I thought it was incredibly dangerous. And it interests me because I think about like John Marsh and Brian Hauswirth here in mid-Missouri. And how, as a matter of fact, whenever Brian Hauswirth came to Wake Up Mid-Missouri several years ago, what would happen? Every time we had some kind of elected servant on the show, and then we would chat with them about whether it was Department of Revenue. By the way, I've reached out to Wayne Wallingford's office from the Department of Revenue to see which is the pettiest county in Missouri. Sent them an email when it comes to the gas tax.
I'm sure they record it by county and how there are rules about whether you can release people's information and tax. Obviously, there's lots around that, but they could just aggregate it and tell us. Because I was saying that I think, after another year, people I thought had probably given up and they're like, it's too much work. I don't want to do that. And we got tons of texts saying, nope, I'm going to get every dime back from the government. I am turning those receipts in. And so I think if I had to guess the pettiest county, I would think somewhere in Midmo is going to win.
And as a matter of fact, we got a text yesterday from listener Zim. She got $138 bucks back.
That's great.
That's because it goes up every year.
It does. So it was 5 cents, 7.5 cents for this past year, and so this year I think it'll be 10 cents. I think, or did it start at 2.5?
It's 2.5 cents per year, or 2.
So it's like 12.5 by the time it's fully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fully in 2025, right, Brian?
Yes.
And I understand that,
it's gradual. It's not all at once.
Right. And I have found, because people, they make it too hard. It's not too hard. I did it. And producer Hannah and Stephanie Bell.
If Brandon can do it, anyone can do it.
That's a true story. Yes. And I've done it. It's 2 years in a row I've done it. And I have found, because people say, it's too hard. And I have found this for me personally. It's easier to get the money back than to complain about paying for that extra gas tax. That's just me. So in other words, it's the principle of the thing.
Principle.
The principle.
There
of
it is. Taking a shot.
Principle. But I found it's easy. Just get the money back and quit complaining. For me, that's easier. Anyhow, so Stephanie had this idea. So which is the pettiest county in Missouri? In other words, which county percentage-wise is sending in the most refunds to get some of your taxes back on that fuel tax? I think it'd be a great idea.
And my gut feeling is going to be, I'm going to disagree with Stephanie on this. That's okay. I think it's going to be a county in the boot heel. That's just.
I was also thinking that.
Yeah. They're very, very, very conservative.
And if we charted
But I could be wrong.
But if we charted the percentage of this gas tax receipts with the percentage of Trump votes in the last election, I wonder how correlated. Does it perfectly correlate with level of conservative voters?
Well, I drove from St. Louis to Farmington this summer. There were, now this is before some court cases and stuff, but there were Trump signs everywhere. Lots of crosses, lots of churches, and I mean Trump sign. When I say everywhere, and that used to be the most Democratic area in the state. Not anymore.
John, you have any guesses?
Pettis County would be the most pettiest county, right?
Nice work. By the way, gas prices going down. There's at least one county in Missouri where you can get it for under $3 a gallon. It's Vernon County.
Where's Vernon County?
Southwest Missouri, down on Old Highway 71, now I-49. Vernon County.
I saw it at $2.96 in Boonville yesterday, I think.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I want to make, if I may, one correction to something I said yesterday, a very small thing. But
Can I get to the New York Times correction first?
Yes.
You go first, because the New York Times took 4 days. No need to get to it now, morons. Gosh.
Understand. I had mentioned, we talked about Osama bin Laden. A lot of our younger listeners would have no idea. One of the cell phones used in a terror attack was actually purchased in Columbia, in mid-Missouri. John and I both covered it many, many years ago. It happened in 1998. And I had said on the show yesterday that the cell phone bought in Columbia was used in the USS Cole attack. Tim Shear, who wrote the new book on and of course a former cadet instructor at University of Missouri, he wrote me, and he points out, and he's absolutely correct, it was actually used in the 98 embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania. They were all close together, so I am incorrect on that. It was not the USS Cole, it was Kenya and Tanzania. Point is that Osama bin Laden used a cell phone purchased here in Colombia. People forget that. I mean, it was a big deal at the time.
The point is, our story yesterday, we were talking about Border Patrol. And by the way, they doubled down on this yesterday, saying, hey, we really have to pay attention to what's happening at the border. We don't know what's coming through the border. And there were numbers showing, here's the number of terrorists that we have nabbed, the ones that we've caught coming across the border. And now there's a heightened sense of, holy crap, because we haven't been doing our job since President Magoo's been in office, because rainbows and unicorns, we love everybody. So do we. There's a human element. We get that. And I will quote New York City Mayor Eric Adams all day long. We have unlimited compassion for humans. We do not have unlimited resources. And I love that because, progressives, well, you just hate brown people. No. We got to take care of our people, take care of these people. And when you can't control what's coming across the border, that's, again, why it matters. That's why people should not be voting for this guy for president, or really any Democrat for any office, seriously, in my opinion. New York Times, here's the other thing that we talk about, these progressive news outlets. New York Times, they had an account about the hospital bombing last week, and they right away and they're admitting this, by the way. They have issued an apology kind of way too late, but they were the first ones that really ran with this, and they are admitting we relied too heavily on claims by Hamas. You know what, Hamas, it's a terrorist organization. That's what Hamas is. And the New York Times, we relied on them, and they relied on them because it helped purport their point of view as it relates to the what's happening in Israel. It put forward their point of view. Brian Hauswirth took less than 24 hours, actually, and he knew it before. We knew this yesterday when we got the info, but it's just now
not nearly. I mean,
and not of the same nature.
Yeah, of course. When we get something incorrect, we point it out, and But this is obviously much more severe. And there were a number of other outlets that ran into the same thing. Hamas put out misinformation. Actually, one of the reporters was a quote-unquote disinformation reporter, and he got it wrong too. But it's and the Times is being criticized for this, but it's tough because a lot of that, they're seeing stuff on Twitter. I know what's happening, and they're seeing stuff on Twitter, and they're being pressed by their own probably readers. Well, what's going on? But you can't be in a rush for these things. You have to get it right. Well, and if that means you're second or third in the story, so be it. But you got to be right.
And we were a victim of this yesterday as well when it came to footwear that was featured in a local story in the news.
Well, and we had quoted another news outlet.
That's right.
It's our news partner.
It was, and again on it. So it was footwear about something.
It happens.
He was not wearing Crocs. He was wearing cowboy boots, as Gail Blumenkamp said. But again, I think when you get those eyewitnesses like that say stuff, they don't necessarily get everything right. And to him, the guy was probably at the bottom of the cliff. The guy was maybe 30 feet up. Maybe he thought it was Crocs, but it wasn't. It was cowboy boots.
And one quick thing before we move on to the next thing, and this is, we talk about ownership. And ownership, in my opinion, includes when you make a mistake, when you get it wrong. Brian saying, hey, I said this information yesterday. It was tied to a different terrorist attack. The point was it was a cell phone bought in mid-Missouri by Osama bin Laden in Colombia.
Yeah, by his people.
When Stephanie Bell says, hey, I messed up the numbers on recreational cannabis, whatever, and she does it right away. The New York Times takes 4 days, and then they don't take ownership for their mistake, and here's why. They're saying in part of their apology, the report left readers with an incorrect impression about what was known and how credible the account was. So they're not taking ownership for it. The account, they're not saying, hey, I made a mistake, we made a mistake, and we, in effect, lied to people. It left readers with the incorrect.
Blaming us like we misinterpreted what they were saying. No, thank you.
That's called gaslighting.
Yes.
Exactly. And we talk about dysfunctional relationships and how sick those people are and abusive people. What are one of the tactics that abusers use? Gaslighting. My goodness, there was an entire classic movie back in the 30s or 40s about it. Was it Gaslight Square? I think.
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart was in the movie. And gaslighting, making people think they're crazy when they're not, through manipulation of thought by what they say. So you see, this is not a talking point, which is my favorite talking point all of a sudden. That's what they're doing. That's what the New York Times and most of those other medias, they're gaslighting you. They're trying to make you think that you are stupid and that it's your fault. When they say, quote, the report left readers with an incorrect impression about what was known and how credible the account was. They're trying to make you think, yeah, you're kind of to blame. And we understand the sensitive nature of this. So that's something you can share with people. You say that's what gaslighting is. That's why whenever we have disingenuous in media that gets the facts wrong, in my opinion, they do it intentionally because they're trying not to put forward facts. They're trying to put forward a point of view, and usually it's a point of view that I find to be very dangerous for Americans.
And I just got fact checked.
What'd you do, John?
Jimmy Stewart was not in the 1944 film Gaslight, says listener Jim.
Well, don't apologize yet. Wait for 4 or 5 days.
That's right.
Write a letter, and then you can blame
the Israelis.
And blame somebody else. Coming up 5 minutes now, Morning Bell, business news with a little twist.
Well, we are always looking forward to Fridays because it's Feel Good Friday on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, but here is a
Hello, it's 8:25. Time for the Morning Bell. Business news with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Well, lots to feel good about this morning. The futures are all in the green by nearly 0.5%. So market is looking, what is going on?
Nothing.
I know what that laugh is about. All right, you can't repeat that on air. All right. Another reason to be really looking forward to Friday. Now, we have to say goodbye to our friend Brandon, so we are going to need things to be happy about this Friday, and I've got something.
All right.
So, free fries on Friday. How great is that? McDonald's.
It sounds like a marketing ploy that producer Hannah would have come up with.
Totally, but I'm here for it. So I think we can all agree that McDonald's probably has the best fries. Like, they just, I like a good waffle fry, I like sweet potato fry, but like McDonald's fries are just good. All right, they're giving out free fries through the end of the year on Fridays. There is some rules, so we're gonna make sure.
Of course.
Well, and we don't gatekeep. We want you to save money. We know you're spending extra money at the pump, so we're talking about how you get your gas tax money back. And here is if on Friday you want to save a little bit of money, you got to download the app. It actually starts this Friday. How exciting is that? You got to download the McDonald's app, register, and then on the app you have to make a minimum purchase of $1. That's not very much.
No, that's not bad.
And then you go into the deals tab and you click Free Fries Friday and add to your mobile order. And that's how you get a free medium fry every Friday through the end of the year. How cool is that?
It's about as easy as getting your gas tax refund in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, right.
So my husband has his buddy in from Australia for the first time. It's his first time in the States. And I've been asking him, what are some of the culture shocks that you've had? And so far, the one at the top of the list is the size of our large McDonald's French fries. That's been his biggest culture shock so far.
Is the what now?
The large size from McDonald's for French fries.
Really?
Yeah.
So they don't
it's like massive to him. Like our medium is their large.
It's interesting because I've heard that from folks who come from other countries because they talk about the food serving sizes of Americans in general.
Yeah, and I would have thought it would have been the drink because a large McDonald's drink is like a bucket of soda. I mean, it is like a 2-liter. It really is. But you go overseas and you get, and I'm like, can I get a Coke Zero? And I'm like, it's like a shot. That's what it is. It's like a shot of Coke. I'm like, I need like 4 times this amount of Coke. So I would have thought it was the drinks, not the fries. But yeah, it's another reason why you got to love America.
I need you to back that tanker up to my house full of my favorite soft drink. This is interesting, or maybe not, but probably not then.
Thought.
Right? But it was fast food restaurants, and largely the one you were just talking about back in the 60s, they changed the potato farming industry in Idaho, because before you got all these different potatoes and it was, hey, whatever's available at the farm is we put on the table. Well, then McDonald's said, nope, in an effort to be consistent, we want all of our potatoes to be the exact same thing, and we want them all to come from the same grower every single year to be consistent. So it was then they started controlling how they farmed and how they produced potatoes in the state of Idaho. Told you it was pretty interesting. Coming up a few minutes.
Big old russets, right?
Yeah, big old russets. The state that exports the most potatoes, by the way, in America, Oregon.
More so than Idaho?
More so than Idaho. Idaho's biggest export, of course, trout. Because of there's numerous, Idaho very mountainous and a lot of natural, crystal clear, beautiful natural springs. Hannah's fact checking me right now. And because of that, Idaho exports a lot of the trout you get comes from Idaho. All right, let's talk about something important.
Computer and electronic products.
Really?
Yeah.
More than potatoes?
And that's what it says.
More than trout?
According to the USTC.
Stephanie, but one of the things we do every morning here on the show, Morning Bell Business News, the Daily DC Rundown, and Stephanie goes through and she looks at what's happening in DC, some of the underground stuff that you don't always hear about front and center. And the phrase she used to talk about what's going to be happening today as it relates to the House Speaker race?
It's going to be a long day.
Yeah, Congressman Jason Smith joins us tomorrow. He's widely considered Missouri's third U.S. Senator because of his very powerful position, chair of the House Ways and Means Committee.
Ways and Means.
Yeah,
huge.
And that's big for
none bigger. And he represents the deepest red district in the state. That when I was growing up and you and I were growing up, we both spent a lot of time in southeast Missouri, was the deepest blue part of the state. That completely flipped, like most of rural Missouri. But he is, a lot of people thought he'd run for the Senate, but why when you have a chance to become Ways and Means Committee chair? I mean, he probably has as much power as a senator right now.
Yeah, he's super powerful. And, we had him on the show a few times, but I mean, he is all over the national news outlets since he took this new role.
Yes.
And, I hope that this is just the start of him getting into more prominent positions. And I think it is. I think people really respect him, and I think he's been doing a really, really good job in the role.
And here's what I respect about Congressman Jason Smith. He's got the chops, conservative chops. He's strong. He's not weird, and I appreciate that.
And he also comes home a lot. So
yes,
he spends a lot of time with the people. I saw him at the state fair. I did see pictures. He was at Mizzou Homecoming this weekend. I think he spends a lot of time in the state and in his district, and I think that's really important.
And that's exactly right, because people forget that. And when I was at Missouri Net, I can think of at least, Stephanie, 3 or 4 either tornadoes or floods. Tornadoes off the top of my head that happened in small towns in his district. And whether his district is all over southern Missouri, and he was there. He would be there, and I would get better information from him. No offense to the local police and fire, I don't know how he would get this information, but he was very detail oriented. So he doesn't just rely on his staff; he gets the work done. That's pretty impressive.
And that's also a hardworking Brian Hauswirth.
It's good to see you.
The hardest working person I know in my professional and personal circle is Stephanie Bell. Good morning, Steph.
Good morning.
There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
My big thing about Hannah is I like to gamble all of her money away. I'll bet you a week's worth of Hannah's salary. As a matter of fact, here's John. What do you think about this bet? John Marsh is here too. What's up, bud?
Yep.
Here's my latest bet.
Yes, sir.
We were talking about Trump. He's got some more court appearances coming up amidst rising poll numbers. USA Today, Suffolk, Emerson, every single poll we're seeing shows Biden and Trump tied, Trump leading in some of those. And the good news is, even if it's not Trump, I hope that more and more Americans that were either independents or these progressive Democrats are going, man, the bank account, safety at the border is now becoming even a bigger issue. Now we've had a couple of days in a row, the Border Patrol is saying, hey, like we're on extra high alert because of what's happening in Israel, because we have caught terrorists trying to come into our country through that border. And that's why that's important. It's not just something to complain about. It matters. And now over the past couple of days, Border Patrol has said, that's something we really need to pay attention to. So Trump's poll numbers are going up. Even if it's not Trump, hopefully that's an indictment against Biden. And hopefully, literally, there will be some indictments against Biden coming up. But hopefully that's an indictment from the American people. They're looking at the safety at the border. They're looking at their bank accounts. They're looking at the general mood of the nation. They're thinking about the future of their kids. They're saying, whoever it is for president, even if it's not Trump, listen, any of them would be fine. Haley, Scott, any of them would be fine. And I don't know where it be anybody but seriously, almost at this point, anybody but a Democrat, anybody but Joe Biden, anybody, and that's because this stuff is real.
And you talk about the economy. That strike with that auto worker strike is just it's dragging on and on and on. And they have record offers on the table right now.
And they want less hours and more money. And meanwhile, I can get pulled over because I can't get a part right now. I had to get proof from the dealership. I had to get proof that I have this part on order. I can't get the part because they're on strike. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So here was the latest bet that I'm trying to gamble away producer Hannah's money. We're talking about one of the last times Trump made court appearances, and what happens every time Trump goes to court?
His ratings get better.
His ratings get better, and then there's news organizations all following. And now Trump has pulled up to the courthouse, and now his car is leaving this place.
They break in live coverage.
Yeah, like it was the O.J. Simpson thing, circa 1995 or 1996.
95.
I bet a month's worth of Hannah's salary. I would give a month worth of producer. And here's why you should be watching the show on YouTube right now. Hannah's reaction. I love you too, man.
Hope you're paying my rent is all I got to say.
You're number one.
I would give Trump a week's worth of month worth of producer Hannah's salary if Trump would pull up to the courthouse in a white Ford Bronco.
Wow.
Right? Wouldn't that be cool?
Generally, they're in, it seems like black Suburbans or so it seems. And you never know which vehicle he's in, but yeah.
Put on some big old 33-inch Mickey Thompson tires, give that thing a 3-inch lift, put Trump in the back seat, and have the cameras follow that white Ford Bronco all along. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up.
And David Muir, one of the times he was going to court, it was at least 20-minute drive to court, and they were all up there talking on. There's only so much on the set you can say. They were filling time. They'd go. I mean, they were just repeating themselves.
Yep.
It was just.
Let's welcome into
sad.
the show now from the Jefferson City Police Department, Lieutenant David Williams. Man, welcome in. Good.
Morning, and the reason it's important is because I see people taking headsets off. Am I that loud? What I would say is one of the reasons that we think it's a very important thing is there's a lot of medication that's out right now in homes that aren't being used, and we would like to collect those and turn them in so that they're not accessed by the wrong person for the wrong reason, and we, in fact, get a real bad situation turned out of that.
Now, one time years ago, I was selling a house, and the realtors, and this was back in the early 2000s, they said, and by the way, make sure you hide your meds because people will go and look at homes, and they go and tour the home, and they would go and open medicine cabinets.
I never thought about that.
Like that. And don't be flushing your Viagra and Prozac down the drain either. It messes with the fish really bad. So do these drug take-back events.
Well, it's important because there are some people in our population that need that medication, and then when they're no longer around, that medication sits around, and we don't want our younger people or people breaking into homes just to see what medicine is out there. So we want to collect it. This is a safe way to collect it. The DEA has been doing this. This will be the 25th take-back day that we've participated in, and Saturday the 28th at the Jefferson City Police Department.
And Amelia has always behaved as the middle child, and the morning that I walked in with her holding a bottle of gummy vitamins like it was a package of popcorn and just, eating. She had a bad day. She did not feel good. But luckily, obviously we called poison control in the doctor, and luckily all she ended up with was a bad tummy ache. But, if I especially think you mentioned our young people about our kids, how important it is to monitor those prescription and other drugs around your house.
Lieutenant, when and where is this?
It will be Saturday the 28th at 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at the Jefferson City Police Department. And in case you don't know, we're located at 401 Monroe Street here in Jefferson City. What you'll do if you're interested, you never have to get out of your car. We actually are going to have personnel at our south garage door. So if you turn on the alley, which is called Handley Way, Handley, and you come along the police department, there'll be employees outside that will collect them and place them in the appropriate box, so you don't even have to get out of your car.
Okay. And when we say drug take-back event, prescription drug only?
Well, it is designed for the prescription drug. We're not going to ask questions. This is not an interview process. If you find something that you no longer want, there's some restrictions. We don't take syringes, sharps, containers. We try not to take illicit drugs, but again, we're not going to start asking a lot of questions. If you found something that you're concerned with being at your home around your family and you no longer want it, from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock on Saturday, we will be more than happy to take that and turn it over to the DEA.
Jefferson City Police Department Lieutenant David Williams joining us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Dave, before we get to the fun part of our little discussion this morning, I know we've heard all the stories. We have friends who have kids on active duty in the military right now, and they're at a heightened state of alert. Can you talk to us about anything you're hearing from either the FBI or Homeland Security about the whole situation in the Mideast and in mid-Missouri?
We are very privileged to have such a good relationship with all of our federal agencies, and so we get a lot of information. Some of that we can't share, of course, but we are constantly being updated by the government as far as what should be. Being the capital city, the center of government, we get a lot of things that are occurring here in Jeff City that we have to pay attention to. And since we are the agency that's responding to the majority of things that happen locally, we are at that table in conversations right now. So nothing that has been brought to our attention that we need to specifically pay attention to. We try to be vigilant at all times, John. It's not something that we wait for a situation in the Middle East to bring us to a better place. We try to maintain the training and the awareness that we've often enjoyed as the Jefferson City Police Department.
Talk to us about the fun stuff for the kids come Halloween.
Well, not just Halloween, but also on Saturday, we're going to have our annual Haunted Precinct, and that's going to start at 5:30 at the police department. So you can bring your little ones or big ones. We do have some adults that dress in costume as well. You will be able to come to the police department, and our police cadets, along with some police wives and some police employees, will have, as best we can, a opportunity to come down the hallway at our precinct, and we do our best to give out candy. We also have a good relationship with Scholastic. They give us books, reading material. So it's not just the dental work that we try to work on. We try to work on the mind as well.
Very nice. Lieutenant David Williams, Jefferson City Police Department. Thank you for coming in, man. It's good to see you. A final question. So I don't know that this is a thing anymore. I'm getting ready to go to Idaho. I get to see my grandbabies on Halloween. But when I was back in my day, it was you came home, and of course the parents, and I guess they still go through the candy. But has there ever, in your recollection locally, ever been a report of somebody trying to taint somebody's candy or putting stuff in candy that shouldn't be in there? Have you ever had a report of that?
I would not say that we've never had a concern. We've always encouraged people to look at the candy and all the things that have been brought in by the walk around. More importantly, we want to make sure that people are going to neighborhoods that they're familiar with or that they know the community. I'm not saying that you can't go to a strange neighborhood, but it would help to know what your kids are going to bring home if you know the area that they've gone to, if you're familiar with it. We would recommend that always go through everything that's been brought in the house, because we are in a society that you never can say no. And so although I believe we've had a good years of, in my 31 years, we've not had a lot of episodes to where we were concerned, but I don't think anyone should take anything for granted, especially with their kids.
Lieutenant Williams, thank you for hanging out with us on the show this morning. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks for the invite.
All right, Lieutenant David Williams on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. 5 minutes now from leftovers. A church in Missouri suing its own denomination. How come? We'll find out why. 5 minutes. kind of thought that it was an interesting story. And listen, I don't go to church on a regular basis. I went once last month. First time I've been to church for a church service in a lot of years. To me, it's in my heart. It's not in a building on Sundays. But I don't understand how these things work when it comes, well, it's the denomination or the church. But I did want to bring up this. We were talking about the House Speaker race. One of our listeners says, man, we just need to get these folks in Congress. We need to get them. Lock themselves in the building, and you figure it out until you get a leader. He says that's how they do it in the church. Whenever they try to pick out the next pope, they get in there and they do it. I don't know how accurate it is. Not trying to pass along misinformation, John. That's just
sounds like that's what they're doing today, though.
Off the text. What do you got?
It's probably not a bad analogy where they see some, I don't know, puff of white smoke out the back of the Capitol or something.
They lock the Cardinals in the Sistine Chapel until they have a pope. That's the exact text.
We've got some court news coming up that we want to keep our eyes on. So I was kind of wondering this yesterday because that abortion initiative, that we got the circuit court decision quite a couple weeks ago now, and I was thinking, when does that go to the Court of Appeals? It's headed there next week. So that case will be argued, and we'll hear something about that abortion initiative here in the near term. Also, currently happening in Jefferson City, the Judicial Commission is interviewing folks for the vacancy on the Missouri Supreme Court, created by Judge Draper. There are more than 20 people who have applied. Of course, we just had a vacancy, so it's a lot of the same names, but people that might be familiar to the Wake Up family. One person that I know is familiar is Dave Rowland, who sometimes sits in for Gary Nolan. He was quoted in an article saying, "I have shown throughout my entire..." And now my computer died. Anyway, he was just saying, hey, throughout my career, I've had a dedication to the Constitution and the rule of law. Other folks that have been on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, I know Senator Tony Luke DeMeyer, out of the Kansas City area, is an attorney and is currently serving in the Missouri Senate. He was on the list, so they're going to narrow the list of 20 to 3. The commission sends those 3 names to the governor, and then the governor will pick. So,
and we look at the United States Supreme Court and how impactful Trump's 3 picks have been. So we think, well, it's Supreme Court, Missouri, whatever. These things matter. Marsh, you got anything for leftovers, bud?
Got a woman charged in Jefferson City with stealing $37,000 in public assistance benefits. The woman, Absoya Jones, received benefits from SNAP, Health Net, and Child Care benefits. They said she didn't include her spouse as a member of a household or declare his income, and she is in some hot water.
I can imagine stealing taxpayer money is what you're doing there. Thanks for joining us on the show this morning. I hope you come back tomorrow doing a couple of cool things. If you have not heard Raven Harrison yet, man, she is changing minds all the time. She's going to be joining us a little bit after 7 o'clock tomorrow. We'll talk about